just walking in, and he.
I was just going to say, whack your headphones on. Yeah, I'm recording.
Oh, right.
This is what I do. I'm just like, oh, by the way, guys, I'm recording. So if you would like mind putting them over your ears and speak. Yeah, these mics aren't they don't have the greatest reach, so if you kind of just...
Do you normally aim for an hour or something?
Whatever. I mean, whatever is happy for you. I mean...
So I've listened to a few of your broadcasts, and some of them seem to go on forever.
Some of them do. I mean, it depends what we're talking about. If it's something that we could really get stuck into, we like to take our time, don't we? You know?
Yeah.
Whereas so yeah, me and Shane.
So where am I, Al? Yeah, it must be about 2-3 years ago, and basically, Al come walking into the prison on his own, just being like, "Hello, can I have some friends, please? I've just moved to the area."
Oh.
And at the time, I was actually putting all my my latex on and all my blood and everything for the zombie acting. So I turned around with my brain hanging out and my eye hanging out and all made up, all covered in blood. And I was like, "Hey dude, how you doing?" It's like, "Come on, I can do your makeup and that, like, And he was like, "Oh, okay." And that was basically it, wasn't it?
The first time I ever met Shane, he was doing my makeup.
Literally, yeah. And then we got chatting. We had a lot in common and stuff. And then obviously with the other show, Thorskin, he just said, "Do you want to come on an episode of Thorskin?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So did that, and I think I did 2 episodes, I think. Yeah. And then literally pretty much out of the blue, Alex and the 2 other co-hosts on the Thorskin basically said, "Do you want to come on as co-host?" And I was like, "Okay."
So I said to Shane, like, I'm going to need help with the biscuit, It's growing, so I need a co-host. So Thorskin was kind of like weight training for him, it's like getting him ready.
Yeah.
And I was actually speaking to one of our listeners last night, and he was saying, like, he's one of these guys that listens to Thorskin religiously, and he was like, from the beginning, like, Shane was a bit sketchy. He was quite honest, but he's like, he's actually come on really well, so we're quite proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
And how is the biscuit going?
The biscuit's going really well. We my goal, I think I put a post up on Facebook yesterday about how I'd love to become like a beacon of Shrewsbury. I'd love for us to be the ones to kind of bring out information and stuff, and it's slowly getting there. We're getting to a point now where people are coming to us.
Yes.
To want us to promote things, and that's what we want.
Yeah. So there used to be a very local radio station. I'm not talking about Radio Shropshire. There used to be one just for Shrewsbury, I think.
Oh, really?
A few years ago, but I think that bit the dust.
Yeah.
So you're talking about being ultra local.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In fact, actually, we need to bring up a fact that we got offered Funk in the Forest, a festival which is going on in Welshpool. And the guy, the promoter, this is my wife, by the way, just coming in. And he was like, "Would you like to cover the festival?" I was like, strangely, it's like, it's not quite Shrewsbury, it's actually Wales. But
just saying.
But we can do it with Thorskin, and we can get him on and get him to talk about it, surely. But we like to keep things kind of Shrewsbury based, because that's what this is for.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've said this many times, that Shrewsbury's like a bottomless pit of just like festivals, creative people, amazing writers,
music, and
stuff going on at the Guildhall, stuff going on at the Darn, and stuff going on at the Quarry. There's just so much to cover. In fact, like we were just talking before we put the mics on, that we can't cover it all. There's just so much to do.
No.
But it's going well.
We are finding now that there's people going to events, and it turns out that literally that they have heard about said event through the podcast. They literally have said that they wouldn't even know that it's been happening unless we've covered it, essentially, and we've pushed it.
Yeah. Are you able to say how many listeners you
have? We are, at the moment, we're pulling around 500 downloads a month, which is better than the 100 we had when we first started. So like there's a good growth going on there, and we have listeners. I was just saying, actually, we were just sitting there chatting, and you weren't aware that we're actually covering all of Europe now. We get people in France, Germany, all over the shop listening to us. Russia, for some reason. America, Australia. Yeah, so the audience listener base is growing. And do you know what? Like, I have designed the biscuit, so it's like something you can pick up and put down, and pick up and put down. And because, like, we cover a varied amount of subjects. We covered battle rap. a few weeks ago, like because there's something going on that I thought was fun to talk about. So let's talk about rap battles, And I got my American co-host from Thorskin to join us because he's all hip hop.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Is that obviously with each episode of the Biscuit, it's supposed to be like isolated, if you know what I mean. So you can just listen to that episode of the Biscuit on that subject, and then you don't need to listen.
We'll
to the rest.
Forgive you if you don't want to listen to, a podcast about rap battles, but it's doing really well. And in fact, when I was first speaking, we met, it was about January or something like that. We met up for a coffee. And in fact, I wish I had a microphone on that conversation because that was a podcast in itself. But it's quite awkward to walk. Would you mind if I recorded our conversation?
One of the reasons I was late arriving, one of several reasons really, was I just thought, what am I going to talk about? And I thought, if I don't write down a few pointers,
I'm glad you did.
Go off in all sorts of different directions.
We do that quite a lot. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Phil Gillam, Mayor Phil Gillam.
Hello.
How's it been? How's been the mayorhood? How do you spend
the mayoralty?
How's it been?
It's been fantastic. Thoroughly enjoying it. It's been 5 weeks now, I think, and it's absolutely zoomed by. So much variety. That's another thing. I mean, I'd have to write... Well, I do write it all down because I keep a diary anyway, which is just as well. And someone very early on, they said, do you know what, Phil? You really ought to keep all the photographs because every time we go to an event, there are photographs taken. And so I've started saving them all on my computer with a view to, at the end of the year, doing a nice book with all the photographs in, because otherwise it's just a complete blur and you can't remember what happened, And I've spoken to previous mayors and they've said that year it just flew by.
Yeah. Not to sound like the complete narcissist, I totally believe you on that one because we do so many shows with so many amazing people and I have to be reminded, you need to take a picture of this. Because it goes by so quickly,
Yeah. And it's such a great honour, it really is. It's my hometown. I feel passionate about Shrewsbury. I think it's absolutely beautiful. As you were saying earlier, Alex, it's such a creative place as well. So many festivals, so much music, so many great writers and all the rest of it. And it's hard to keep up. Actually, there seems to be a festival every week.
yeah, there is at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah. But that's part of the fun of it. And I mean, in the recent weeks, I've been to the River Festival. I've been to Shrewsbury Carnival. Yesterday, we were at the Food Festival. And there's so much going on in the quarry all the time, it seems to me. It's fantastic.
I think I saw you at Comic Salopia.
Yeah.
And I was like... I think it was like week 2 of you being the mayor or something. I was like, how's it going, Phil? Are you enjoying it? And you were like, it's a lot. You were shell-shocked.
I was a little bit, I was a little bit. We have the wonderful Bob Handley as the mayor's officer who drives me around and looks after me and gives me lots of advice. I mean, that was a good one, Comic Salopia, in... so far as I do actually know a little bit about comics. They might not be the same comics that you guys enjoy, but still, I was able to just talk about my childhood and the comics that I loved when I was a youngster. And a few people afterwards said, goodness me, Phil, you actually know quite a lot about comics, don't you? So that was a nice one. Sometimes you're thrown into the deep end and you think, what am I going to say? Yeah. But that was good.
It shows, doesn't it, when you're frustrated a topic that you actually... let's go. Because I think the one show I had Shane Chebsey on, this is way before Comic Slope, we were kind of just starting to promote it. And... I was just kind of like, we were like, bam, 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 this great conversation.
I really enjoyed that one, actually. And you could tell that you were both complete fanatics about comics.
Him more so. He has I always could say a doctorate in geek because I don't have a doctorate in geek. I kind of learn as I go along. So let's talk about you. When you talk about when you were younger, what was a young Phil Gillam like? You've had this great career in journalism. How did that start?
Which one are we going for? The Phil Gillam as a youngster or a journalist?
I want to see were you a tearaway as a kid?
What? No.
I don't believe you.
No, it was pretty boring, I think, really. I was born on Springfield Estate, and we moved when I was about 6 years of age, and then I really grew up. in North Street. That's a funny thing to say, isn't it? I really grew up. I really.
You moved to the Bronx. It's a pecking order in there.
That's right. Yeah, Castlefields is the Bronx of Shrewsbury. Yeah. So I grew up opposite All Saints Church and. Have extremely fond memories. This is where my sister and I differ completely, because she said, "Oh, how can you possibly have loved living there?" Because at the time the house was very, very damp. It was cold. We had an outside toilet and no inside bathroom and all the rest of it. But have so many great memories. I just think it was a fantastic place to grow up. Lovely Victorian streets. I think even from a very, very young age, I've always enjoyed walking around historic streets and looking at the houses, looking at the buildings, and just imagining what it was like 100 years ago. I've always had that. So Bellevue, absolutely love Bellevue because it's just full of fascinating buildings, and I never tire of it. So I think I've always had that. I've always understood, appreciated the history, and thought about all the different generations that have lived in this street.
It's almost like when you see like the old walls and stuff, and the cobbles on the streets and that kind of stuff. You kind of think, that if they could talk, the stuff that they've seen,
absolutely. And Shrewsbury's full of that. Every time you turn a corner,
there's something else,
a church,
and you notice something new. You can go down the same street 100 times, and then all of a sudden you'll just notice something, and you're like, I never noticed that before. It's like, that's amazing.
It's that kind of character that made me want to do this show, is because, well, I tried to incorporate Shrewsbury into Thorskin by doing a Night of the Dana, and it just didn't work. So I thought, no, let's make something dedicated to Shrewsbury, because I know there's a lot of people, say in America, that are just obsessed with our traditions and our history, and what better place than Shrewsbury, So and when I was doing the Bellevue Arts Festival and we did the garden walk, and I got like invited into people's houses because it was tearing down with rain. You got these terrace houses up on Trinity Street and stuff that just go further back, and you don't realise how big these houses are, and then the gardens are just like, it's crazy.
And we don't sell it enough in many ways. Darwin, for example, we could make a great deal more of Charles Darwin. We don't really sell that connection. For example, would you believe we've got a mayor coming from a town in Chile coming in October, and it's all down to Charles Darwin, because Charles Darwin visited Chile on his voyages, and this little town in Chile, they're huge fans of Charles Darwin, and they thought, let's go and find out where he was born. So we've got this mayor coming from Chile with a Chilean ambassador and a little delegation from Chile visiting us in October. So that's very exciting.
We've got my co-host Garrett on Thorskin. He lives in Arizona, and he works at CERN. He's quite a clever boffin, and he's dying to get here, isn't he? As soon as he can afford to get here, he's going to get here. But so young you went into journalism. How did you go about that? Did you go to university to do that? Is it something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, well, it was certainly something I always wanted to do. I think from a very young age, I was interested in writing. I used to love writing stories, and English was my favourite subject at school. So I just loved writing essays and stories, making things up, all that kind of stuff. And I know as a journalist, you don't tend to make things up.
Oh no, it's never been known. Never been
known. No, never. They tell the truth all the time.
All the time. So it was like, well, I'm not going to just be a novelist or something, because that doesn't happen, unless you're extremely talented and you get lots of great breaks, and you write Harry Potter or something. For most people who want to be writers, that doesn't really happen. So I thought, I'd love to be a journalist. No, I didn't go to university. No, I went to what we called Tech at the time, Shrewsbury College on the London Road. Which at that stage was the technical college. And so I came away from school with no O-levels, no A-levels, nothing. And I thought, well, if I want to be a journalist, I've got to get some O-levels and A-levels. And the only way to do that was to go to Tech. So we did an intense 2-year course where we did O-levels and A-levels, which enabled me to get onto a journalist's course at, it's the Express and Star and the Shropshire Star, the Midland News Association as the mother company, if you like. and we were trained above Burton's the tailors in Wolverhampton. The little school at the time was a couple of offices above Burton's the tailors. So we learnt shorthand and law and public administration and typing and all that kind of thing within about, 5 or 6 months. And then we were let loose on our local weekly newspapers, which in my case was the Shrewsbury Chronicle, where I started in 1977.
Good God.
Wow.
Cheers, Shane.
It's all right.
Let's not insult our guest now, Shane.
I thought Shane was going to say, well, that's not that long ago. Suddenly I feel ancient. Yeah.
You're looking good for it, though.
Oh, thanks, Shane. You're trying to redeem yourself. Yeah.
What was that like then, stepping into the Chronicle?
What was that like in the old days? Before motor cars. 1977. Well, it was terrifying in some ways because you'd never actually done this work before, and you had the editor and the deputy editor and everybody sort of watching your every move. And so it was a little bit scary, but it was also very enjoyable. Shrewsbury Chronicle, one of my memories is that myself and a young lady called Megan, we were the two trainees off that course. There were 12 of us on the course, and we were farmed out to different weekly newspapers all over Shropshire and the West Midlands. And so Megan and myself started in 1977 at the Chron, when it was Chronicle House directly opposite the railway station. And I noticed straight away, guess what? Megan's doing all the weddings and I'm doing all the obituaries. And I think that was because, they thought, well, a girl would be much more interested in weddings and she would be able to write about what the bride was wearing and all that sort of thing.
It was the 70s.
And I got all the obituaries, which actually, it wasn't as depressing as it sounds. It was quite a lovely, lovely job because I'd very often go and visit. So say it was a lady in her 80s or something, and she just lost her husband. And what was fascinating was, we'd sit down with a cup of tea and a biscuit, and she would tell me all about her husband. And so it was a little bit of social history. And I found that absolutely fascinating. So newspapers don't do that anymore. It's something that's fallen by the wayside. They don't have the staffing levels that they once did. And so all those things don't get done anymore. They don't tend to cover councils so much. They don't cover magistrates' courts so much. And it's completely changed.
It's because people like us, we're like, you can listen to the news rather than read it. I'm very sorry. I'm really sorry about that. But how from the Chronicle, how did you do it?
He is completely deluded, isn't he?
He is, isn't he? He apologises for everything. It's ridiculous, honestly.
So, from the Chronicle, where did that take you then? Because you've given us a list here of all the different places that you worked.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm not going to speak for hours about each one, but
no.
So the Sunday Independent was next. I think that was down in Plymouth. There comes a point in your life, I think, where you just want to break away from mummy's apron strings, as they say. You just want to go and do something completely different in perhaps another country, but in my case, another part of the country. Leave Dodge, yeah. And so I looked around for what was available. There was a job going on a newspaper called the Sunday Independent down in Plymouth, and it covered Cornwall, Devon, and Somerset. Strange newspaper in many respects, but I had so much fun down there. It was a fairly short period, partly because, would you believe, I got very, very homesick, and I was coming home like every other weekend, because actually I missed Shrewsbury and my family so much that I was coming home quite often. But, I met these names might not mean anything to you guys because you're only 12 years old. But I met people like Norman Wisdom, the great comedian, and Jimmy Tarbuck, who was sort of in pantomime or whatever down in Plymouth, and I'd go backstage and interview them. I met Joan Collins, actually, around about the time, I think it was just before Dynasty, when she was in Dynasty. She was available for interview. I think she'd just been in a fairly big film, and what I remember about that was all the journalists were kept outside in a sort of little waiting room. And her minder came out and said, "You're only allowed 7 minutes or something, ridiculous, some ridiculous amount of time, And of course, Miss Collins doesn't want to speak about this, and she doesn't want to speak about this, and don't you dare ask her about this. There are all sorts of things about her background we weren't allowed to ask her about.
Yeah, you're like, the best bits.
yeah. So that was kind of weird because you met this sort of iconic figure. She was such a famous actress, and you wanted to ask her, and you wanted to spend a good deal of time, like we're doing now, guys, around this table. And she just would not speak about so many things. She just wanted to plug her latest film, basically. So that was a bit disappointing.
We got that with Comic Salopia, didn't we? We got to
we
spend
did get that bit
10-15 minutes with Jamali Maddox or something, and I'd be like, I'd love to like delve deeper and stuff, but we didn't have the time. And I've been in press conferences as well when you've got chairs of press people around, and you got the star at the table, and you're all fighting to get your questions in, and they're all fighting to get their cameras in the centre point of the room, and it's quite dog eat dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how was that like dealing with that pressure though?
I mean, but perhaps the editor didn't have such high expectations because you'd sort of come back and you'd write something, But I mean, all the background information. It was long before Google was invented, but nevertheless you could still trawl up quite a bit of information about these people, and so that would build up the article, and you could actually, there was nothing stopping you saying that Miss Collins refused to speak about this, that, and the other, so that kind of blew up in their faces a bit when they were a bit strict about what you could ask and what you couldn't ask. But no, I mean, most of the time people are absolutely lovely. I met Ralph McTell, who was lovely, and Gilbert O'Sullivan, and lots of singer-songwriters from that era. Crowded House, I met Crowded House, and Neil Finn, who is just such a brilliant songwriter. So I met lots of very interesting people through the years. Moved from Plymouth up to Hull, which is where I met my lovely wife. So I had a few years in Hull. Then it was a fairly circuitous route, actually, when I start to think about it. Because then, for some reason, I'm not quite sure, I think it was because, I wanted to, I'd forgotten about that. I wanted to go to Israel and work on a kibbutz I can't even think why. I think
it was a calling.
Yeah. It was like, if I don't do it now, I never will, It was like, I've never been abroad. I've never been to anywhere exotic, and I sort of heard about this. They want volunteers to go to Israel and work on a kibbutz, so you can sort of drive a tractor and you can irrigate the fields at the edge of the desert and all this kind of stuff, and so a whole bunch of us went over from England, and that was very exciting. It was only, 7 or 8 weeks, I think, but it was just great to be in a completely different country, completely different culture, do a bit of travelling. So that was exciting. And then when I got back, of course, I didn't have a job anymore.
Did you just up sticks and go, more or less?
Well, yeah, in a sense. I mean, Carol, my wife, said, if you're going to go, you better do it now because, you don't want to be like thinking about it in years to come and you'll blame me for the rest of your life that I didn't let you go or something, So why not just go and do it and then...
Get out your system.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And then find another job and we'll settle down and have children, That's the kind of thinking, I suppose. So I ended up, we came back and I came back from Israel and there was a job going in Stafford and I thought, well, that's close to my beloved Shrewsbury, so it's a step in the right direction. This sounds actually quite selfish because it means that I'm forced Carol to move away from her hometown. Again, yeah, what a selfish person I must be. We moved to Stafford. It's funny, you look back and you think, why did we move to Stafford? But when you start to analyse it, oh my goodness. So we moved to Stafford when I worked for a couple of newspapers there, the Staffordshire Newsletter and the Stafford Chronicle. The Stafford Chronicle is part of the Midland News Association, so I'd sort of come full circle. I was kind of almost coming home, if you like. So I was back with the company that I'd started with. And I was always looking back to Shropshire, looking back to Shrewsbury, thinking, how can I get back, And then the job came up. I moved across to the Shropshire Star on the features desk, which was fantastic. I loved that. I just loved that. I hesitated at the time. I remember thinking, this is quite a big step, actually. And, I don't think the money was that great. I don't think that was a consideration. It's not like they were offering me a huge salary or something. I thought, okay, well, yeah, actually, I could be out of pocket here, So do I really want to move? And, I was umming and ahhing about it. And I remember one day I was sat in the barber's having my hair cut, and I thought, what the hell am I thinking? It's back at the Shropshire Star. It's almost home, back to Shrewsbury. And, what's not to like? It's on the features desk. I love writing features, And it was a little bit writing, it was a little bit subbing as well. So there was quite a lot of sub-editing involved and laying out pages and deciding which pictures to use and which headlines to write and all the rest of it. And I found that I really enjoyed that. And that side of it, the production journalism, became much more important. And actually the writing started to sort of fall away. And as the years went by, I became more a production journalist rather than a writer, but tried to sort of keep my hand in and write the occasional thing along the way.
Yeah. We could learn a lot from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could. And like there is a lot that with journalism alone that we could learn as a way of promoting the show and stuff like. And there's things that I just can't. Katie Rink, I was speaking to Katie Rink from My Shrewsbury. She's awesome.
Great. Yeah,
she's awesome. And we were doing an interview, and she was writing in this notebook in what I can only describe as hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
It was like a triangle and then a line, and then a circle and a squiggle. And I was just kind of like, wow, that's quite crazy. And she wrote a whole conversation with like a page just full of these things.
I so stressed about that. We had to do 100 words a minute to get our certificate. We were supposed to do 100 words a minute. And I lost count of the times I took the test because I'd do sort of 80 words a minute and then next time maybe 90 words a minute. And then I'd be so nervous that I made a complete hash of it the next time, And I must have taken the test 4 or 5 times before I actually reached 100 words a minute. And I don't suppose once you've got the certificate you ever write 100 words a minute ever again. But it seemed important at the time. Nowadays, I don't think journalists probably don't use it at all in the main because they would just use a microphone or just scribble down a few salient points and then fill in the rest later, So I'm not sure. It's almost a dying skill, I think.
Yeah, it's really good. The Shropshire Star is obviously is iconic for us living around. It's like it covered Telford, Shrewsbury, Oswestry.
Well, I grew up with the Shropshire Star.
Yeah.
The Shropshire Star Chronicle and the Ad Mag is what I kind of grew up with.
Yeah.
So what happened then? Why?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Can we talk about it?
Yeah. I don't see why not. Yeah, I think anyone of my generation who worked at the Shropshire Star would agree that it became more and more stressful. I think, and I think because there had been round after round after round of redundancies, a lot of people had left. And those of us who were left behind were actually doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people. So we were working very long hours. It became much more stressful. There were crushing deadlines to meet all the time, And so in the end, I was not happy. And when the next round of redundancies came round in 2014, I thought it's time to get out. And that's basically it. So I left in 2014. I was extremely fortunate in so many ways because I then went on to do lots of other interesting little jobs. And when I say little, they're little in the sense that they were fairly short term. So they were fixed term contracts. And I kind of went from a very, very, very small charity based in Shrewsbury called the Shropshire Seniors, which I think still exists in one form or another. But I believe it's entirely run by volunteers now. But that was such a wonderful job with lovely, lovely people. And I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. Then did some freelance work for a magazine based in Bridge North, the Shropshire Review magazine. Again, such fun. And it was almost like going back to 1977 for me, because all of a sudden I was like spending a day at the fire station with firefighters, and it's just fantastic, sitting around with firefighters, getting them to tell me all these stories and that, and taking photographs, and then to go back and write a feature about what it's like to be a firefighter in Bridge North, lots of different things. There was an beautiful Art Deco cinema out there in Bridge North, which I never knew existed, and it's gorgeous. And they still have the original projectors. Wow. It's just fantastic. So lots of interesting stuff there. And then I moved on to Relate, which is the relationships charity, where they counsel people who are going through difficulties. Sadly, they had difficulties themselves, the Shropshire branch of Relate, and sadly they went out of business within a few months of my joining them. Nothing to do with me, by the way. And then, again, very, very lucky, because I then landed a fantastic job with the Alzheimer's Society based in Wellington. The job was very much to develop Newport, Shropshire, as a dementia-friendly town. And so I spent a lot of time out there talking to people. It's a
passion I've noticed that's quite close to your heart.
Yeah.
You really are passionate about it.
Yeah, well, I am, yeah. And interestingly, I think someone just yesterday said, is this a personal thing? Do you know people in your family that have dementia? Well, no, I don't actually. But it's just a fascinating subject. And I think one of the great messages of the Alzheimer's Society is that you can live well with dementia. People think, oh my God, this is it.
That's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. But I mean, you can live a full, good, happy life for many, many years. So that's one of the central messages. And in order to help people live a good, full, happy life, we were talking to shops and businesses and solicitors and estate agents and news agents and food outlets and supermarkets, everybody in Newport, and persuading them that this was the way to go, that they should become dementia friendly. In return for that, we give them a sticker to put on the front door saying we are a dementia friendly shop, and it just raises awareness. We've got a smashing little group now over in Newport that meet regularly to keep this thing moving forward. So yeah, that was extremely worthwhile.
Yeah.
Have we still got a hand in that a little bit, or?
Well, the Alzheimer's Society itself, no, but as a sort of spin-off from that in a way, I had a conversation with a gentleman who is involved in something called DEEP, which is Dementia Engagement and Empowerment Project. So it's not run by the Alzheimer's Society, it's entirely separate. But in the case of DEEP, I'm the Shropshire group's facilitator, and this is a little job, sort of one day a week I spend on this. And it's setting up groups in, Cleobury Mortimer and Church Stretton and Whitchurch and Wem and all over the county. And it's a huge county, as you know. But this is setting up groups for people living with dementia. So the idea is they can meet for a coffee and a piece of cake, or they perhaps meet in a pub and have a pint, whatever it is, or they all go to the cinema together, or they all go fishing together. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's also hopefully to give their carers a bit of a break as well, because whilst the people living with dementia meet for a coffee and cake, then the carers can go off and do their own thing. So, there's a lot of benefits to this.
That's good.
It's like mental health and things like dementia and very close to home for us. Like we were trying to get in touch with Crane, who's a charity shop in town, and with them, that's a charity, obviously, and whatever money they make is they provide counsellors for people to speak to. And I do apologise to the guys from Crane. We haven't been in touch lately. I'm sorry I haven't spoken to you, but we've been super busy. I do want to cover it though. We will get them on the show, but. Yeah, it's really important, I think, because there's a stigma about mental health, and it just seems to be getting worse lately. And I guess that's sort of the same with dementia. People just don't understand it. And for people like what you're doing, your cause, like you got grandma who's going a bit you've got dementia and you don't quite know how to cope with it, there's people like you guys to talk to know how to deal with it, and that's really nice.
Yeah, we're making steps forward, I think, all the time. But do get in touch with Crane Counselling. They're a good bunch.
Yeah, I've got the this is how crazy the biscuit is at the moment. I pulled out my book and the leaflet fell out, and I do remember speaking to her on the phone going, yes, we will, and then, lots happened. But we were going to cover that. We're going to get them round. We can go around the shop, actually. We can set up at the shop and speak to them, because it's really important, I think. I got to thank you as well, Phil, actually, because you gave us our first magazine. First bit in the magazine, I was like, "Oh, I'm in a magazine." And it was the Bellevue magazine. It was really nice.
He's easily pleased, isn't it?
I know. Yeah. When it comes small things, isn't it? Bless him.
I'm like, people will know. Now people will know. Like, But yeah, thank you for that. That was really nice.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Well, you kind of all, we're all doing the same thing in a way, aren't we? And as soon as I found out about you, I thought, that's exactly the kind of thing. I love all this. I love, community and grassroots stuff. It doesn't have to be big. It just, as you say, keep it Shrewsbury. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So yes, I was happy to do that. Yeah, Bellevue magazine. I ought to say, again, as soon as I left the Shropshire Start, one of the things I really, really wanted to do was set up a magazine for the Bellevue area. When I was a little boy, we used to walk along the riverside from Castlefields over the Greyfriars Bridge, and it seemed to me like as soon as you walked over the Greyfriars Bridge, you were entering this magical world. Because we were off to see Nan, who lived in Brook Street, and it was just lovely. We this long walk, it seemed to go on forever along the riverside from Castlefields to Bellevue. And, you cross the bridge and it's like, there's all these little shops and it's like a little village, isn't it? And at the time, there was a newsagent's that it was great. It sold comics, back to comics again, So we'd often have a comic, or they sold little plastic soldiers, and me and my little brother would often buy a soldier, and then we'd get to Nan's and play with the soldiers and all that, And it was just this lovely other world, really, Bellevue. And I thought, it deserves its own magazine, and I'm really proud of this. It's been going now for 5 years. And I really must get my skates on and get another one out soon.
Yeah. Well, if there's any are you looking for writers, people to help out with you?
Yeah, always. People are very good and very generous, and they do submit material all the time. Got a lady called Lottie Clark who writes very, very beautifully about gardening, and she always submits a piece. We've got Aid Plummer, who is always in the I shouldn't say this really, always in the Prince of Wales. And
we should be too, though, to be fair, because it's kind of halfway point, isn't it?
It is actually, yeah. It's literally smack bang in the middle.
You're in Reebok and I'm in
yeah.
But Aid is a massive Shrewsbury Town Football Club fan, and he writes beautifully about that. So I'm very grateful to these people because they kind of keep the thing going, really.
Yeah, it's a great little thing, and it's things like the Bellevue magazine, For the Love of Shrewsbury on Facebook. Lorraine Fletcher does that beautifully. Yeah. All these community projects that kind of made me think this needs to be done.
Yeah,
someone needs to be making a podcast now, and it's only when I kind of looked for a podcast with the Shrewsbury name in it and found out, there's Glyn that does the football one. He's great, by the way. He's been on the show before. He does a great job there. And then a few Bible sermons and things. I was like, yes, we need to do this now. Otherwise, somebody else is going to do it. So we did it, and
it's interesting how you always mention Lorraine Fletcher. Good old Lorraine. Yeah, she's fantastic. And
she is lovely.
I do want to get her on the show. She's quite shy though. She said,
I've got a funny story about Lorraine actually. I went to buy some. What was it? I think it was like fence posts or something she randomly had, and she put them on Facebook, and I bought these fence posts off her. I stood there and she was like, and she sort of looked at me, she was like, "Are you Helen's son?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
Why? And she was like, "I've known you since you were a kid." And I was like, "Have you?" She was like, yeah. Anyway, we ended up having this long conversation about how she remembers like my brothers and sisters and that kind of stuff, like working at the Radbrook school, and I was just like, this is mental. It's like, we literally stood there for probably about an hour and a half outside the house, just chatting, just catching up. It was really weird.
I definitely want to get her on the show if we can entice her sometime. Maybe we can bring her on, Phil.
Yeah,
maybe we can hold a hand.
Come on, Lorraine.
I'm going to write to her today. I'm going to be like, hey.
You don't need to, because she'll be listening to this.
Yeah, I hope so. She's actually, I've got a lot to thank her for, because straight out the bat, I messaged her and I was like, people don't like self-promotion a lot, especially when it comes to podcasts. Just listen to my podcast. But so I said to her, like, can I post on For the Love of Shoes? She's like, absolutely, of course, please do. Yeah. And I have been, and she's liked and loved and shared and things.
She just shares a lot, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's brilliant. So thank you, Lorraine, for that. So how do you all these projects? You're a workaholic, sir.
I don't think I am.
You like to be busy. You like to be busy.
I do like to be busy. Yeah, I wouldn't describe myself as a workaholic. I'm desperately trying to get rid of some of these things.
How do you find time with your family, especially with the mayor thing at the moment?
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got 3 boys. They're all grown up. They've got families of their own. They're all sort of. That's not strictly true, actually. We became grandparents for the first time in September.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So that's very exciting. A beautiful, beautiful little boy. So when I say they've got families of their own, that's not strictly true. So we've got 3 sons. The eldest is living in Bristol. He's a graphic designer. And the middle one, as we have to call him, it always sounds a bit strange, that, doesn't it? Is... a social worker, and he lives in Birmingham. And the little fella, who's not at all little anymore, is working for the patent office in Newport, Wales, and he lives in Cardiff. So they're all doing their own thing, all very happy in their chosen professions. So that's fantastic. So. We see a lot of each other. It's not that far to Bristol or Cardiff or Birmingham. So we see a lot of each other, and they're all very close. One of the great joys of my life is that the 3 boys are such great friends. And they go cycling together, and they watch out for each other. Then they're always
really
calling each other.
It's very rare.
It's rare. I was going to say it's rare.
Yeah, my brothers get together, and within an hour. My family live in Ireland, so it's like I get a break. But when we're together, there's always some sort of problem that arises, and we're always kind of, no, it was Sam. No, it was Connor. No.
We're the same as well. Yeah, I think about 50% of my family are all dysfunctional some way. But
it's funny because the more people I speak to, I just assumed that everyone had families like ours, but the more people I speak to, there's rifts, and people don't speak to one another, and so maybe it's not such a common thing after all that all the boys are such great friends. So very, very grateful.
It's testament to their upbringing, I think.
Shucks.
The way they've been parented. No, it really is. It really is.
And not just kids,
kids are a product of their upbringing. Obviously, it's not until they get a bit older they start obviously growing into the people that they become as they get older, and I mean, their core values are put in place when they're little, and that comes from the parents.
And
so kudos to you guys.
I always find distance is great as well. We were talking about this earlier. Sometimes people need a bit of space.
Well, the whole lot of us are going on holiday together later in the year, so
you'll see.
I'll let you know how that goes.
You going anywhere nice? Anywhere nice?
Somewhere in the depths of Wales, in Carmarthenshire. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, we just come back from Wales. It was lovely. We had a really good time. We went to Pwllheli. Do you like to write? So writing is like a huge portion of your life. You were saying, and you've written for newspapers, you've written for magazines. Is there anything out there that I know there is, but I'm setting this up for the show. Is there anything that you like to write just for you, to put your name on?
I've over the years I've written quite a number of books. It started with non-fiction. So way back in the year 2000, I put out a book about Shrewsbury. It won't surprise you to know it was about Shrewsbury. Which was kind of like a guidebook, really. And I did the whole thing myself. So I wrote it, I took the photographs, I designed it, I did the whole thing. And thoroughly enjoyed that project. And then with the Shropshire Star, myself and Toby Neal. Toby Neal is someone that everyone who reads the Shropshire Star will know. They'll know the byline. And Toby's deeply into local history. And So Toby and I were given the job of writing a few books about, first of all, Shrewsbury, and then about Shropshire as a whole, and then about Telford. And they were picture books, really. So we drew upon the newspaper pictures from the Shropshire Star archive. And they're smashing little books, really. They were nice hardbacks packed with local photographs from sort of the 1940s, 1950s, right the way through. And they were great because unlike a lot of books which just show you the buildings, these were full of people because they were newspaper pictures, So it was just fascinating, You just had these sort of ladies serving tea and coffee in Lions tea rooms in the 1950s and that, So they were great pictures. So we did that. And then, more recently I've written a couple of novels, which always sounds a bit like I'm showing off when I mention this.
No, we like self-promote, sir. Self-promote.
Yeah,
we want to hear this.
Plug away.
So this was just something I just kind of had to do, and I remember being on holiday once, and I saw these books on the shelf that were, yes, they were novels, they were works of fiction, but interestingly, they were set in that particular place. So we were actually in Pembrokeshire, and all these novels were set in this particular part of Pembrokeshire. And I thought, actually, that's rather clever, because you've got yourself, albeit a very small audience, you've got yourself an instant audience, you've got yourself an instant readership. Because if you can work into the title and the look of the book somewhere very local, then, at least you're going to sell some locally, if not beyond, the borders of Shrewsbury or whatever. So I took this idea and ran with it, really. So I've written 2 novels. I've brought them for you today, actually.
Oh, fantastic. Ooh. We like stuff like that. You are right, though. It's very clever. Like Ron Morgan, who we had on the show, he wrote Don't Bring Me Flowers. It's this amazing story set in wartime.
That's amazing.
And thank you, this is amazing.
Well, I don't know if it's amazing. You can read them and let me know if they're amazing. But they've got some sort of curious titles, really. So Shrewsbury Station just after 6. You see, I had this idea I'd do a trilogy, and I haven't written the 3rd one yet, but it may well happen. So Shrewsbury Station just after 6. It's a love story, and it's set in the present day. And I got our daughter-in-law to paint the pictures for the front covers, by the way. Yeah, so
really?
It's a real family thing, So
I love stuff like this.
Yeah. Big congratulations to Laura, who
it's really good as well.
Painted these wonderful pictures for the front. So Shrewsbury Station just after 6 is set in the present day, whereas Shrewsbury Market and a girl called Veronica, I couldn't remember her name then. Shrewsbury Market and a girl called Veronica is set in the 1920s. And then I thought maybe if I do a 3rd one, I could somehow cleverly bring these 2 stories together. But that's somewhere down the line.
These. I really can't wait.
They're love stories, as I say, one in the present day, one in the 1920s, absolutely, sort of saturated in references to Shrewsbury. So you'll see as you read, that there's Shrewsbury buildings and places that you'll recognise throughout. And I just thought that was a nice idea because, then at least local people, will sort of get into it and think, oh yeah, I know these places.
And that's what I was just saying before you handed me these beautiful books. Is that when Ron Morgan wrote "Don't Bring Me Flowers," it was a wartime story, so they were all around the world. It was about Japanese concentration camps, things like that. But it was about him finding out about these stories, walking around Shrewsbury in the 90s, and he was describing streets as he was walking down, and and that to me, I was like, oh, I live there. It's really nice. It's true.
And you had Lisa Blower on the other day,
yes,
now she is a fantastic writer. She is a fantastic writer. I love her stuff. And you were talking about the story Barmouth, the first one, the first one in the collection. And she actually name-checked me when she was on the Biscuit last time, because I sent her a message saying, I'm sat in a coffee shop in Shrewsbury and I'm actually crying because I've just read your story Barmouth, you know. So I'm making a complete fool of myself here, you know.
It's your fault.
It was so it just felt so nostalgic, didn't it? You know, when you think about those holidays you went on as a kid, like to the rusty old like caravans and things like that, where you'd be all right to sit in the well of the car and things like that, you know.
But it was so bittersweet, you know. It's such a sad story, really. You know, it's really quite sad.
Like Lisa writes in such a way that you can almost smell the pages. You know, when she's talking about like she's describing a scenery, like the place where they give the homeless food. You can almost smell it and hear it and feel it. You know, and that's what I really liked about the way she wrote. And sometimes I feel like, you know, to write short stories like that, which are like a page or two long sometimes, it's really good because it kind of it's like an instant hit, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't drone on, not to say drone on, but it doesn't go on and on and on. It's like, it's straight there, bam, in the scene, this is what happens, go.
You know?
It's very clever, very clever. And this is really good. I do want to get like a lot of like local authors like yourself. I want to get David Trumper on because he's my old school teacher from school.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
He's just a super busy guy.
So let's make a list. That's Lorraine Fletcher.
Yeah.
There are so many people I want to get on. Stan, of course. I want to get Stan on. Sedman, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people. And the town crier, he said he'd come on. He said on Facebook he would come on, so we have that. You know, you go, come on.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll need a microphone for that.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
He's an amazing person.
Yeah. Martin and I went to school together.
Really?
Yeah. So it's quite funny now when we sidle up to events, and me as the mayor
right?
and him as the town crier. Yeah. We both went to Belvedere together, and he had a train set, and I had a train set, or a model railway layout actually, rather than a train set. Yeah. And so I'd borrow a locomotive off him, and he'd borrow one off me. It was great.
You have to lay with your gobstopper. I know it all went down. Don't worry.
Now, the connecting points to everything we've talked about during this podcast is Shrewsbury, right? That is the centerpiece for everything that you involve yourself in.
Yeah,
you love this town, and
I do.
It shows.
It's so deep in my psyche. I mean, it's interesting because I think you can either embrace that and say, I love this town and I don't really want to be anywhere else, and you can embrace that. Or you can have the opposite, you know, view that actually I know this town inside out and it's time for me to move on, you know. And I think my younger brother took the opposite view, I think, you know, and he thought, well, yeah, Shrewsbury's lovely, but actually I need to live somewhere else and do something else.
See, I couldn't see myself living anywhere else than Shrewsbury. It's because I'm born and bred Shrewsbury, and I couldn't live anywhere else.
Yeah,
you know,
it is. I mean, I think you get to an age also. I mean, you're just a whippersnapper, as I say. You're
always a whippersnapper.
You know, you're only 12, but when you get to my age of 27, you know, you every corner you turn, there are so many memories, you know, and it's just layer upon layer upon layer of memories. And so, you know, I do think sometimes I walk around the town and I think, oh yeah, you know, and constantly I remember stuff from years gone by, and it's
like my dad. I mean, I come across pictures on like the memoirs of Shropshire and stuff like that on Facebook and things like that. I come across pictures and I'm like, where is that? And like, I'll just send it straight to my dad. Yeah, and I'm just, because he was born in Longner. He obviously grew up around Shrewsbury. Yeah. I send it to my dad. I'm like, where's that? He goes, oh yeah, that's by so and so. And I'm like, is it? And he goes, yeah. If you know, and he explains it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah, you know, I mean, for example, the little footbridge over the railway line at the top of Betton Street, which is out of action at the moment. You know, and that little footbridge, it's just filled with memories for me. I mean, I think they're going to take it down because it's unsafe. But I remember, you know, when I was about 18, stood on that bridge one evening waiting for my girlfriend at the time to come out of the Red Cross building, which was on Betton Street, and Guess what? She never turned up.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then fast forward many, many years, and our son Tom worked for the Red Cross in that building,
No way.
and, it's like, that's what I mean about layer upon layer, so even a particular building might have more than one memory for you,
Exactly, yeah.
And it's things like this I like to sample, because it may not sound... I'm not well-travelled when I talk about places I've lived, but when I was young, I started off in Telford, and then when I was like 11 or something, I moved to Wrexham, and then when I was about 22 or something, I moved back to Telford again, right? So I'd lost like all these places that we used to play when we were kids and things that I'd completely forgotten about. And I remember I was walking through Telford Town Park, right? And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I nearly burst out crying because I found these steps that I remember with my dad. We used to go running up there to go to the park. We used to live in Randley. We used to walk up to the park that way, and I hadn't seen these steps since I was about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And when I saw them, I was just like, oh my God, this is weird. This is because I hadn't grown up around this bit. So I'd forgotten they existed. Like the amphitheatre thing you've got in the wooden thing you've got in Telford Town Park as well. I hadn't been there since I was little. So when I saw that, and I was just like, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird. So talking about things that you've grown up around and you still feel nostalgic and beautiful and you love it, that for me is really nice to sample because I haven't been able to witness that into some sort of respect, So yeah, this is what when I ask people what they love about Shrewsbury, that's what I like to hear, and that's beautiful. I think that fills that out. But you do a lot for the town, sir, and as a mayor, you're bringing something quite special to the town as well. In September, which I'm really excited about because the Cavern for me in Liverpool is one of my favourite places in the whole world, and obviously that's the birthplace of the Beatles. Mm-hmm. And you're bringing the Beatles to Shrewsbury.
That was one. I've got a point. That was one hell of a segue, man. You segued the hell out of that. Fair play to you. That was smooth, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think you ought to do a podcast.
Yeah, I think I should. Maybe one day, maybe.
Yes, indeed. So slight exaggeration to say I'm bringing the Beatles to Shrewsbury, but in a way. It was quite funny. I bumped into a friend outside Sainsbury's one day, and he said, would you believe it? Phil Gillam becomes the mayor of Shrewsbury, and the very first thing he does is set up a Beatles weekend.
You're like, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to bring a bit of Phil to Shrewsbury because this is me. That's what I like.
Yeah. Well, there are, albeit quite tenuous connections, there are connections to Shrewsbury. I mean, people say, why have we got a Beatles festival in Shrewsbury? Okay, I mean, if you wanted to stretch a point, they played in Shrewsbury 3 times. They played at the Granada Theatre, which is now a bingo hall. They played at the Music Hall twice, which is now the Museum and Art Gallery. So they visited Shrewsbury 3 times. They wrote one of their big hits as well on the way to Shrewsbury as they were travelling from Chester to Shrewsbury on a bus. And there are, various connections if you start to look for it, but that's not the point, really. The point is that I'm a huge Beatles fanatic. I don't like to use the word fanatic because it sounds like you're part of the paramilitary group of the Beatles fan club. So I'll scrub that from the record, and I'm going to say I'm a Beatles aficionado.
Do you still have the card? I guess they must have sent a card out in the post. Yeah. If you send it to P.O. Box.
Yeah, no, aficionado is much better than fanatic. So I've loved them all my life and continue to love them. And I just thought, this is a great opportunity, actually. Met up with a very good friend of mine, Tim King, who you must get him on the podcast as well. Just make a note of this, will you, Alex?
Tim King, is he the guy that does the Darwin walk?
I was going to say I've seen his name flying around somewhere.
I don't think the Darwin walk. He's involved in the Cartoon Festival.
Oh, okay. No.
He used to work at the Museum and Art Gallery, and he was very instrumental in the Wilfred Owen Festival last year as well. Yeah. But I mean, Tim Great guy, and I realised that he also is a fully paid up member of the Beatles
Fanatic Society.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm going to keep using that. This definitely is a great word.
He's a Beatles nutcase as well. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'm going to go and see Tim and see what he thinks. And he said, oh, yeah, I really want to be involved in this. Absolutely. So we got very, very excited about it. And the first thing we did, we started having conversations with some of the many, many tribute bands that exist out there. And I got a conversation going with the Mersey Beatles, and at that moment the Mersey Beatles were in Florida on tour, and we were exchanging messages, and I rang the manager one tea time, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm talking to a guy in Florida about coming to Shrewsbury and being part of the Beatles Festival. It was just so exciting. And he said, yeah, I'd be absolutely delighted to be involved. And we sort of continued that conversation. They're playing, they are the sort of foundation stone of the whole thing. They're playing on the Sunday night. So this is September 20, 21 and 22. And they're playing on Sunday the 22nd at Theatre 7. Now, sadly, for those of you who have only just heard about this, it's already sold out, I'm afraid. I think there might be like 4 or 5 tickets left. But the Mersey Beatles is sold out effectively. It sold out so quickly, even before the Theatre 7 brochure had been published.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's partly because Tim and I had been on Facebook sort of shouting about it so much. But yeah, that was phenomenal. So it's going to be a great atmosphere because we're going to have
the closest thing you can get to seeing the Beatles, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it is really, you know. And because it's I'll talk about the other events in a moment, but because it's the 50th anniversary of the Abbey Road album, this year, the Mersey Beatles play the entire album, Abbey Road, from beginning to end in the first half of the show, which is fantastic. And I've seen them very recently. I went over to Stafford to see them a few weeks ago, and it's fantastic. And then everybody goes off and has a drink for the interval, and then we all come back, and then they do sort of the crowd pleasers, the hits in the second half, you know. But the legacy of the Beatles is such, you know, the body of work that they produced is so vast that there's no way you could do justice to it in a single evening, you know. So they're doing, as I say, Abbey Road, then there's an interval, and then lots of hits in the second half. But it's going to be great. But for those of you who sadly haven't got tickets for that, there will be lots of other things to go to. I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee.
Yes, please do. And, you know, if you want the Shrewsbury Biscuit to, you know, sit backstage or something, I don't know, maybe just, you know, sample a bit of it for, you know, whatever we could do. Maybe.
Yeah, we could cover the Beatles weekend, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could.
I'm sure we could do that.
Do something. I'm sure there may be no tickets available, but there might be some standing space in backstage, I don't know.
We could sort something out, yeah. So five fantastic films are being screened as well, and I am eternally grateful to the aforementioned Tim King because he's sorted all this out, really. These fantastic films, these will be in the Walker Theatre, the smaller auditorium at Theatre 7. We've got good old Frida on the Saturday, which is a delightful, charming documentary. And it's all about the Beatles fan club secretary called Frida Kelly, who is still with us. We got in touch with Frida and she sent us a lovely message. She's not able to join us for the festival, but she did send us a lovely message of support. And that's a gorgeous, typical English film, you know, it's really lovely. Then A Hard Day's Night, absolute classic from 1964. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Fully restored. So to see that fully restored on the big screen is very special. And it's going to be introduced by Cara Spencer, who is the daughter of the Beatles photographer Terence Spencer. And Cara has got lots of stories to tell. We've got the Beatles 8 Days a Week, The Touring Years, which is a fantastic documentary. Great to see that on the big screen. About the tours in America. Fantastic, that is. We've got, we've got so much stuff. I almost forgot to mention, there's a Beatles open mic evening at the Wheat Chief in Frankwell.
Ooh.
You can get all these
Open mic,
details.
you see?
Oh, it's fantastic. You can get all these details by either visiting the Facebook page, Shrewsbury Beatles Facebook page, or get in touch with Theatre 7.
Or you can message the Biscuit. We can get the information for you as well if you need to.
Make sure you send any links to this, and we, like we said with Dr. Andrew last time, we will. We'll post any links you've got, of course. That's what's great about Shrewsbury. We just share each other's things, you know.
We're so nice in Shrewsbury, aren't we?
Yeah, so lovely.
Yeah, we are.
It's almost like a utopia.
Oh, it is. And then, I'd better mention the other films as well. There's Backbeat, which is a drama about the Beatles in Hamburg. There's Looking for Lennon, a documentary about John in the early years, with a question and answers session with the director, Roger Appleton.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Oh, and I've got to talk, we get back to comics again. Tim Quinn. He's a mate of mine now living on Merseyside, but he lived in Shrewsbury for many years, and I got to know him very well. Fantastic guy. He's coming to do a superb talk at the Hive. And I think Tim's the only person on the planet who could deliver this talk because A, he's an expert on comics. B, he's an expert on the Beatles. And this is all about how the Beatles were portrayed in comics throughout the 60s and beyond. So it's an illustrated talk. It'll be hilarious because Tim's a lovely, lovely storyteller. And that's at the Hive, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
That does sound good.
Because I think, was it Shane Chebsey who said he commended you for, reading the Beatles comics, because he's a Beatles fanatic. I think I remember seeing someone on Facebook a while back.
Yeah. And there's also...
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I'm probably going to forget something. There's live music at the Buttermarket as well, which is going to be...
turn into the Cavern, that's right.
That's going to be great fun, because the cellars at the Buttermarket with the arches and everything in all the quiet little corners, it's a bit reminiscent of the Cavern. Okay, it's stretching a point a little bit, but hey... so we've got live music and we've got local musicians playing Beatles songs there, and you can just go and have a coffee and a bacon sandwich. You can take the family. It's going to be very relaxed. So it's just a nice sort of chill out session.
The Cavern for me is, like I said, it's like one of my favourite places in the world. But it's one of those strange experiences where you can listen to live music and read bricks. Because all the celebrities that go there sign bricks, and it's like the whole building is just full of signatures all on all the bricks. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a very strange experience, but a great one as well. And, some of the biggest bands, even like today, like some of the biggest like indie bands and things came from the Cavern, because it was like the house bands there would always do well, Yeah. Well, this is awesome, and you got the backing of the Biscuit. We will help you very much with this, because I think I said this to you before that this sort of thing brings people together, and like what better than the Beatles? I mean, Steve Next Door, he's famous on Thorskin, because we always talk about Steve Next Door was blasting out some Beatles yesterday. I was like, turn it up. Turn it up, it's quite a thing. It's quite a thing.
This new movie that's coming out yesterday. I mean that does us no harm at all, because again that'll put the Beatles back in the headlines. I mean it took a while. There were a few sort of fairly negative reviews about that to start with, but there's been a couple of really good reviews, 5-star reviews.
You never listen to the reviews. Go and enjoy it.
Well, I think. It's, for heaven's sake, it's a romantic comedy. It's not Shakespeare. I do think critics sometimes take things a bit too seriously. It's just a bit of fun. It's entertainment. Yeah, let's just
take it as it is.
Just enjoy it.
There was a woman this weekend slamming Toy Story about its ethics, and I was like, how can you slam Toy Story for its
ethics of Toy Story?
Yeah, this is the craziness of today. But yesterday sounds brilliant. If you don't know what that is, there's a movie directed by Danny Boyle, and it's about the world. This guy wakes up, I think he gets hit by a bus or something like that. He wakes up and everybody's forgotten the Beatles songs but him. Yeah. Nobody knows they exist. So he's whacking out yesterday on the guitar, and people are like, when did you write that? That's amazing. It's like, it's a Beatles song. Huh? Yeah, it's quite funny.
And Richard Curtis has written the screenplay from Love Actually and all those things, and I mean it's just just enjoy it. Don't get too heavy about it, and all those great songs, and I think it looks so much fun.
It sounds to me like it's just because it's done by Danny Boyle. It's like, oh, he's a big director. Let's look for holes in it. I think it sounds fantastic. I'm a big fan of the Beatles. I wouldn't say I'm a big Super Beatles fan, but it's one of those things I can definitely throw on and just relax to. It's just one of the, and it's timeless, the music. So
you have it on in the background while you're cooking, that kind of thing,
And I think the youth could do with like listen to a bit of Beatles as well, because it's one of those things that makes you realise. Do you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I enjoy it.
Well, it cuts across. I think their music cuts across every generation, and what in some ways it surprised me, in other ways it didn't. But right up through the 90s into the noughties and all the rest of it, I collected Mojo magazine and Q magazine, all these music magazines, Uncut, and they would. Every now and then, the Beatles would be on the cover, and this was like 40 years after they broke up or whatever it is, and you think, good God,
they're still doing it, yeah.
They're still important.
Stay in power, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, I'm not going to ask you what does Shrewsbury mean to you, because we've clear. We've answered that, we've cleared it. All I'm going to say is, thank you so much for your support from the very beginning. You were very instrumental in kind of, giving me a bit of confidence, because when you start something like this, it's not easy to gauge kind of where it's going to go. But
you should see Alex's face when I think you put a post up on Facebook a while back.
Yeah.
A big post. He turned around to me. I think I was actually here, and he turned around and he just looked at his phone and he went, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Why? What's happened? I was like, what's going on?" And he was like, Phil Gillam has just shared a status and he's tagged me in it. He was like, oh my god. And he's probably like, I was like, breathe. It's okay.
It was that from that moment I kind of realised we're kind of onto something here, So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And you've always sang our praises to some extent, so I really do, I appreciate it. And I wish you all the luck for the rest of your mayorhood.
Thank you very much.
Mayorship, mayorhood.
Yes, whatever it is.
Yeah. Have you got much planned this week? What have you got going?
Actually tonight, we've got an engagement tonight. We're going off to Wellington to the civic reception for the Mayor of Wellington. There's loads of stuff going on next week. Yeah, without looking at my diary, I couldn't tell you what it is.
Just get in the car and we'll go.
Well, Bob often says that as we're heading off to an engagement. What day is it? Where are we going? Yeah, it is a bit of a blur, but great fun.
Yeah, well, we couldn't have anybody better as a mayor. Somebody that loves the town like you do. So thank you very much for everything that you do, and
it's a pleasure.
Keep in touch if there's anything we can help. You or the council, whatever is going on actually, you were saying it'd be good to explain to people what a mayor actually does.
That's one of the things I was going to ask. It's a good point, actually. So what I remember you saying actually about when you saw Phil a couple of weeks in, and he said it's a lot. I mean, what does a mayor do?
So it's mainly, these days, it's mainly a sort of ambassadorial role in that people will invite the mayor to all kinds of things. So it might be a centenary, or it might be some kind of anniversary, or it could be the opening a new restaurant in town or something. Whatever it is, there's something. It's usually something that they're celebrating. There are some set pieces during the year. For instance, the flower show. The mayor is always at the flower show. The mayor always has, on the Sunday following the flower show, in the marquee at the quarry, there's a mayor's lunch. So that's something else I can plug, if anyone's interested. There are set pieces. So there are one or two sad things along the way, like Remembrance Sunday, of course, these kinds of things, the big ceremonial things that come round every year. But as I say, in the main, it's an ambassadorial role. You're kind of the figurehead for the town. People love to see you at whatever the function may be. We also chair the full town council meeting, so that's a sort of the council side of it. But yes, it's being out there. It's promoting the town. It's talking to businesses, talking to charities, and as I say, 99 times out of 100, people just love you to be there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same. The world wouldn't revolve the same way if the mayor wasn't at Remembrance Sunday, or it wouldn't. It doesn't feel right, man. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
I'll have to get you on again after all this is done and the dust is settled. Be like, so let's review your year as mayor. How was it? What's your highlights?
That would be lovely. Thank you, Alex.
Good.
Yeah.
And we'll see you at the Beatles weekend. So thank you guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this episode. And if you've got any comments, anything to say, just write to us on our Facebook page, or you can email us, which is shrewsburybiscuitpodcast@gmail.com. I can read it off Shane's very delightful T-shirt that I'm looking at now. We're both wearing them. We look like bookends today.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So if you want one of them as well, check out our Facebook page. But thank you very much, Phil. And
cheers.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Peace out.
Peace out, guys.